Very good afternoon. Today we are going to discuss about four-stroke engine servicing as well as troubleshooting. This is one of the most important part in aircraft engine maintenance and repair. So first of all, you should know about the engine maintenance. So what is an engine maintenance and why we are going for engine maintenance? Because engine maintenance is a very important part in order to keep the problems and breakdowns from occurring. This is one of the most important case for going on engine maintenance. Then it should be completed on regular basis. So periodically we should go for undergoing inspection. And setting up in a maintenance schedule can ensure manufacturer's maintenance requirements are met. So these are the following criteria to be followed for doing the engine maintenance. Then this can also help establish an equipment record keeping system. A schedule should be formulated with the manufacturer's suggested intervals found in the owner's manual. Owner's manual in the sense act of maintenance manual prescribed by the concerned authority. So this is the main purpose for undergoing engine maintenance. Some of the points may include cleaning up of engine components by using the correct spark plugs, then periodical servicing of the carburetor, then periodical servicing of the EFI, that is electronic fuel injection system, and preparing the engine for storage purposes. Then servicing emission control part, ECP, that is emission control parts, then verifying fuel tank and fuel line permeation part. So these are all the inclusion used for engine maintenance. Let us see cleaning of engine components first. So this is the most important part of a maintenance for an air-cooled engine system, right? This is particularly important for today's low emission engines, basically which operates at higher engine temperature. This includes cleaning of cylinder cooling fins, changing of fuel filters, and servicing of air filters. Let us see cleaning of cylinder cooling fins. This is very important in order to properly maintain the transfer of heat. Then only the cylinder cooling fins is properly actuated. The fins around the engine and on the cylinder head act as a heat transfer medium. The heat which is already generated by combustion travels through the fins to the atmosphere. So this is for what we are going for, cleaning of cylinder cooling fins. Next, accumulation of dirt, particles or impurities or debris on the fins acts as an insulator which blocks the transfer of heat or heat transfer. So for that purpose we are cleaning the cylinder cooling fins. Next, this is also a very important part in keeping the engine from overheating, right? Because excessive heat can cause normally thermal decomposition from the extreme pressure condition. Then anti-wear additives in the oil which results in reduced wear protection. Then increases the engine deposits, impurities can sediment in the cylinder cooling fins. And the last one, pre-ignition can occur. So next case, changing of fuel filters. So what is the purpose and necessity? So changing of fuel filters, it should be completed on a regular basis as said already. A completely blocked fuel filter will stop the engine from running condition. A partially blocked filter can cause the mixture to be very lean, which is a major cause of piston seizure or scuffing or overheating failure. Next one, servicing of air filter system. So this process is completed by keeping the filter clean as well as dry condition. The dirty or punctured air filters permit the entry of dust and excess moisture into the engine system. Similarly, debris such as impurities and other substances can enter when the filter is not perforated properly but simply dirty part. So for that purpose, we are servicing the air filters very periodically. Then keeps the engine running condition of the engine very smoothly. So the abrasive particles create internal wear and contribute to piston rings, sticking and stored cylinders. So these are the possible limitations for the servicing of the air filters in order to keep the engine running for smooth condition. When a blocked air filter causes an externally vented carburetor engine to run rich with too much of amount of gas and too much amount of little amount of air. Then as follows, it should be completed by using hot soapy water, normally followed by a rinse of all soaps residue before drying the system. This may include oiling foam filters. So for that purpose, you have to check with the engine manufacturer manual in order to determine if the particular unit being serviced requires this, and if so, what type of oil should be applied. So this is the condition to be followed during the servicing of air filter system. Next one, we are going for carburetor. Spark plug, using the correct spark plug. So why we are using the correct spark plug, or what is the necessity for using the correct spark plug? So for that case, you should know the each and every details. This is mainly accomplished by following the recommendations in the manufacturer's owner's manual or some of the breakdown parts. Usually, the spark plug electrode area typically operates in the condition between the ranges such as 700 degree Fahrenheit and 1500 degree Fahrenheit, which is less than 700 degree Fahrenheit. Normally, will cause a buildup of carbon, which will short or fold the spark plug, and sometimes eventually stop the engine running condition. Similarly, around 1500 degrees Fahrenheit, the spark plug venter electrode will begin to glow, causing the combustion mixture to ignite before the spark occurs or created. That is the pre-ignition system. This includes utilization of a spark plug which maintains an ideal self-cleaning temperature. If the temperature is too low, carbon buildup on the insulator nose will occur, causing the plug to misfire. Whereas in the case of low temperature, this is what happens. Similarly, a cold spark plug readily dissipates the spark plug's insulator nose heat. A hot spark plug normally dissipates the spark plug insulator nose heat at a very slower rate. Next, let us come to the carburetor. Servicing of carburetor is an important for engine system. This should be included in a regular maintenance schedule. So, which includes carburetor adjustment, rinsing as well as cleaning, initial inspection, inspection of fuel inlet screens, inspection of fuel bowls and float. Carburetor adjustments vary as per the engine manufacturer. It is critical so that each carburetor is adjusted to the manufacturer's procedure as well as and its corresponding specification. This ensures the engine will comply with emission regulation and allow the engine to run at optimum power. For that purpose, we have to adjust the carburetor periodically as per the manual. Then this is an important part of engine performance for adjustment of carburetor. Carburetors adjusted to lean will have increased operating temperature normally, and NOx is nothing but oxides of nitrogen emissions. Carburetors adjusted too rich will have increased level of HC such as hydrocarbons and CO, carbon monoxide in the exhaust part, and will not be the emission complaint. And similarly, this is also creates overheating. This may not be completed on all engines. Many small type of engines being produced today come equipped with non-adjustable carburetors. We cannot adjust our carburetor of our own self. Right? Some small engines continue to use adjustable carburetors with very low speed and high-speed mixture needle is covered with a limiter cap. So this figure shows the carburetor with the limiter caps. What is the use? It prevents the users from making adjustment to a carburetor which would cause it to be outside the emission regulations. So whatever it may be the type, we should follow the emission regulation protocols. So without following the protocol, we cannot adjust the carburetor of our own self. Carburetor limiter caps must be installed after overhauling and final adjustments to ensure the unit complies with CARB as well as environmental regulations, right? EPA regulations. So we should follow these both regulations. Next one, rinsing as well as cleaning. Rinsing and cleaning plays a very important part in overhauling of maintenance. Overhauling as well as maintenance. So rinsing and cleaning basically is completed by using an ultrasonic cleaner, which is normally available in all maintenance areas, which is the preferred method of cleaning the carburetors and fuel system components. It may also be completed by using an approved cleaning solvent. This system is completed in the following manners. After rinsing, blow very low air pressure through all the channels such as drill bits, tag wire and other hard metal objects should never be used to clean away obstruction. A soft nylon line may be used to clean any orifices path. Right? So basically the initial inspection part is mentioned here. So these are the following parts to be remembered. First of all, verify the components are not missing or damaged. So this is the first and foremost points to be remembered. Then check the throttle and choke shaft to ensure they are not loose or worn. Basically, they should be open and closed freely. If loose or worn, the carburetor will need to be replaced. Then remove all the excess debris. Next one, we are going to fuel inlet screen. Inspect the fuel inlet screen in order to keep the carburetor function very properly. In order to verify the screen is not clogged. The clogged screen basically will restrict the fuel flow, affect the acceleration and impair high-speed performance. In order to keep the carburetor functioning very efficiently, we have to concentrate on the following points, such as any components which appear damaged should be repaired as well as replaced. In order to detect the deformation part, particularly at the point of contact, we should be very thorough with the carburetor to fuel bowl gasket. Remove the float hinge pin and check the float for damage as well as possible leakages. Remove and inspect the float valve for debris as well as wear. Next one, we are going to deal with the EFI such as electronic fuel injection system. So how to service it and how to maintain the EFI part. So EFI such as electronic fuel injection system includes maintaining of the tank such as petrol tank, fuel pump, filter, throttle body as well as injector. Because of the complex nature of the system, there is very little maintenance to be done in order to rectify the problem. This may include adding a manufacturer recommended additives to the fuel. By visually inspecting all components including wiring as well as connectors. Then keeping the components free of debris such as dirty impurities. Next one, engine storage. Preparing engines for storage condition. So it's an important point to keep the engine running smoothly. Such as season of bad storages can do more damage than several seasons of operation. Similarly, damage from rust and corrosion, plugged carburetor passages and stale fuel can lead to the problems the next time the engine is used for running condition. It includes preparing the fuel tank and fogging of the engine. Next condition is preparing the fuel tank. This includes completely draining the fuel, entire fuel from the fuel tank as well as from the carburetor. During in-season use, fuel additives can be added to fuel in order to decrease the oxidation process. The additive is only effective if it is added to the fresh fuel. Next one, engine fogging or fogging the engine concept is completed by coating the internal parts of the engine with oil to prevent any problems with corrosion or rust. In simple, we can say that in order to prevent corrosion or rust, we can go for engine fogging. This is especially true when using the old spark plug condition. So, steps to be accomplished for the fogging of the engine. Removing the air cleaner and starting the engine. While the engine is operating at a moderate speed, engine oil or fogging oil is normally spitted into the carburetor air inlet. Then oil is then introduced quickly to start the engine. While you are doing this process, this will coat the intake system, cylinder, piston rings and exhaust system. Then servicing of ECP, emission control parts. So which includes exhaust system spark plug, fuel tank, fuel feed line, air filters, carburetors, ignition module as well as flywheel. So next we are going on the case for fuel tank permeation. It's very important in order to control the hydrocarbon vapor through tank walls, which normally occurs. Fuel tanks have been improved to limit these evaporative emissions. For that purpose, these low permeation tanks are neither multi-layer nor fluorinated part. So steps. So these are all the steps for verifying the fuel line and gas duct permission. Next, we are going for troubleshooting. So troubleshooting is the overall diagnostic procedure. It's a systematic approach to solving the problem dealing with the engine performance. So these are all the services are offered by the equipment manufacturers and engine technicians. They should address specific issues. Whatever the issues we should address. Then begins with the systematic check. So what are these systematic checks? So systematic checks are efficient, simple routine which are a logical approach to troubleshooting engine problems. After each step in the procedure, check the engine to determine whether the particular problem has been corrected or not. Then the systematic checks are followed with the systematic testing procedures in order to verify the assumption and arrives at a solution. So mainly the systematic checks normally covers the four main areas such as ignition, compression, fuel intake as well as exhaust. So ignition system inspection is periodically conducted by checking for spark with a tester which is able to load the ignition system. Basically it should deal with a 3-point spark tester. This may be completed on both running and non-running engines. First one, connect the tester basically in line with the spark plug, then turn on the engine over and see if it will create a spark across the normal size 4 mm gap at cranking speed. So this is the figure shows for ignition system inspection. The main concept is the adjustment, gap adjustment. Then here high tension lead is connected. Then primary source of lead which is connected to the entire ignition system setup. So next one. Suppose if the case is failure, what is the solution? Failure of ignition system inspection. It's apparent when a spark is not present or sometimes it may be weak or it is weak. So isolate the on-off switch and disconnect it. You should be carefully do this procedure. Then check for spark, whether spark is coming or not. If the engine still fails this test, additional checks of the module will need to be done prior to replacement, such as testing of the module ground resistance along with the primary and secondary leads. Then suppose if the second test, we are undergoing for second test. So what is the second test and what are its basic procedures? You open the tester to a gap of 6 mm. The same case, if the spark continues, this will ensure the ignition system is putting out adequate voltage to start and running of the engine. Then evaluation of spark plug, it's an important part of the ignition inspection. Using the correct heat range spark plug with today's lean and hot running engine is more important than ever before. So we should be carefully do this process. Today's power equipment engines must run leaner and hotter to meet the stringent emission regulations. So we should carefully follow the regulation policy as well as procedures for carrying out these evaluation methods. This includes knowing the appearance of various issues, that is carbon fouled spark plugs, overheated spark plugs, lean or hot running spark plugs. So this figure shows that carbon fouled spark plugs. You can see the difference between the fresh as well as eroded spark plug appearance, right? Here, heavy carbon buildup like this indicates a poorly running condition. This figure is already built up with high amount of carbon. So we have to check the compression and intake system for leaks. Whether the particular leak is available or not, we should check with the compression testing process. We will discuss in the next step. The wrong heat range spark plug, cold or hot, whatever it may be, the type can cause rapid carbon buildup. Then overheated spark plug appearance. So the dull color outside of the spark plug and the flakes of carbon on the firing end are very signs of very high engine operating temperatures. These carbon deposits can cause a short between the electrodes, preventing the arc, basically which fires the fuel mixture, which can occur from incorrect operation spark plug. So blocked cooling fins or partially plugged exhaust system. So this is some example for overheated spark plug appearance. You can see the difference between the actual normally which we have seen. So this corroded spark plug. So this is the comparison for lean or hot running spark plug appearance. You can see the difference between these three figures. First one, second one and this one. A spark plug with a white insulator and eroded electrode indicates the engine is running very lean and hot. You can notice the glazed porcelain and peppery specks which occurs on the insulator, which are signs of the plug which is badly overheated. So simply we can say it is bad condition spark plug, right? Okay, then next we are going for correctly operating engine spark plug appearance. This tan colored center electrode insulator is what can be expected from an engine which will be operating at the proper temperature at the correct air fuel mixture ratio. Next we are going for compression test. Why? What and what is necessary? So why we are going for compression test? Basically, in general, compression test is necessary in order to carry out a particular or identify the particular cylinder leakages. So for that purpose, we are undergoing some compression test operation. So compression tests are basically used to verify low compression diagnosis, such as a special compression test adapter and gauges which can safely read above the maximum expected PSI, that is pounds per square inch, must be used. These are performed in the following manner, some points to be recollected. So these are the basic points. First one, remove the spark plug. So after removing the spark plug, you have to block the throttle plate fully in open condition. Then install the gauge adapter into the spark plug hole. Then rotate the engine until the gauge stops increasing. So these are useful in checking for a difference of cylinder conditions in multi-cylinder engine. So basically compression test can be carried out by two methods, cylinder conditions, direct compression as well as differential compression test check. So we will see one by one. ensure all PSI ratings do not differ by more than 10% variation. A difference in compression between cylinders does not automatically mean there is a problem with the piston or cylinder bore. The problem may be automatic compression release or valve blast related problems, right? Next, wet compression test. This should be performed if a dry compression test indicates a very low compression. We are going for wet compression test. So these are performed by adding a small amount of oil to the cylinder and repeating the same process of the compression check. This should indicate higher compression than the dry compression check. So because oil creates a better seal against the top of the piston rings as well as cylinder bore. Cylinder leakage tests, as I have already told, is considered for a more accurate way to test for an excessive combustion area leakages when compared to a compression test. This is due to a majority of small engines being equipped with an automatic compression release such as ACR to EC starting. This is used to check for excessive pressure loss in the combustion area. So cylinder leakage test requires the following conditions. Both intake and exhaust valves must be fully closed. A source for moisture-free compressed air source must be available. The ACR is disengaged while testing. Similarly, the push rods are removed at the BDC, such as bottom dead center, to ensure that no valves are open. Then run the engine long enough to reach operating temperature. Then remove the spark plug of the engine cylinder to be tested. Then remove the air cleaner and oil fill plugs. Rotate the crankshaft to bring the piston in the cylinder to TDC, such as top dead center on the compression stroke. This top dead center on the exhaust stroke will result in both intake and exhaust valves open. This should be always rotating in the running direction. Then install the tester adapter hose in the spark plug hole. Then we have to verify the regulator. Pressure regulator is set to 0 and connect the air supply. This excessive pressure can damage the engine components as well as seals. Connect the tester to the tester adapter hose. Obtain readings as per the test manufacturer specifications. What are the specifications that is to be carried out for cylinder leakage testing? All these points should be carefully incorporated while doing the cylinder leakage test. Then cylinder leakage test readings. Some may be unacceptable. In this case, you have to determine whether the leak is coming from by listening for hissing air noise. If the intake valve is leaking, so these are the conditions. First case, if the intake valve is leaking, there will be a hissing inside the fuel intake. If air is leaking past the exhaust valve, it will be heard through the muffler part. If air is leaking past the piston rings, it should be heard through the oil fill hole or dipstick tube. If there is a blown head gasket, here air will be escaping in that area, you can hear. Then fuel system inspection. So far we have discussed about the various maintenance, and another one important concept is the fuel system inspection. It's a very important part of troubleshooting the engines. Fuel systems are responsible for a significant amount of failures a technician will encounter or technician will face. So fuel system inspection points: inspect the fuel by obtaining a sample from the carburetor for contamination such as water, debris and incorrect fluids. If the fuel is old and starting to turn to varnish, you may notice a skunk-like smell, which means the fuel has already spoiled, and the fuel system will have to be cleaned once again or flushed to get the unit to run again properly. Check the fuel tank for contamination if any impurities are there. Make sure the fuel filter is installed and not dirty, which could cause a lean operating condition and overspeed at a wide open throttle area. Then check the fuel line for any signs of holes or cracks. You have to check for cracks. Ensure limiter gaps are adjusted at the fridge stop level. Then examine the fuel system for leaks. Check the fuel intake system, hoses and tanks for damages. Similarly, check for fuel on the outside of all these components. Using both the pressure and vacuum test, you have to determine if the fuel tank vent is working properly or not. Most fuel tanks vents are two-way system, that is incoming as well as outgoing part. Air is let into the tank and the fuel is consumed, and similarly air is released and the pressure increases inside the tank from expanding fuel vapors. Most fuel cap styles and remote tank vents are designed to hold 1.5 to 5 psi. Normally, suppose you are saying in the bar 0.1 to 0.3 bar pressure in the fuel tank. When the fuel tank is pressurized slightly, the boiling point of the fuel automatically rises, which helps prevent vapor lock system. Then pressure test the fuel tank for leaks. In order to determine if the tank is leakage or not, we have to do for pressure test. So here attach the pressure tester to a line going to the fuel tank. You have to block off any return or vent lines and apply 7 psi to the, that is 0.5 bar to the tank initially. Suppose if the tank leaks, locate the leak and correct the problem. Suppose if it's not leaking, means the tank is in a good condition. Then inspect the carburetor and rebuild if possible if the pressure test of the carburetor normally fails or some contamination is suspected during the process. A carburetor rebuild process will be required. If the throttle shaft is worn up with up and down movement, the carburetor will need to be replaced due to air and dirt being pulled into the engine setup. The carburetor requires replacement when a technician sees a worn throttle shaft or rotor, corrosion, extreme varnish which will normally inside the carburetor body, bent or grooved adjustment, mixture needle, leaking fuel inlet needle seat or bad main nozzle check valve. Next one, exhaust inspection is an important part of troubleshooting engines. So while we are going for exhaust, a damaged exhaust system basically can lead to dangerous condition. It includes examining the following parts such as muffler, EMG, that is exhaust manifold gasket, catalytic converter and oxygen sensors. So it begins with removing all shrouds and sheets from the muffler and stands. It includes checking for the following process such as leaks, corrosion, bulges, distortion or cracks, damaged or missing heat sets, fins or other substances heat sink material. Next one, engine performance may be affected by the following conditions such as engine vibration, engine overheating, engine runs but stops after a short period of time, engine rises under load, engine lacks power, engine speed fluctuates, engine hard to restart when warm condition, and oil seal leaks. So we will discuss one by one. This may be due to engine vibration, basically is due to engine mount broken or not secured or not seated properly, or sometimes in the form of bent crankshaft or out of balance cutting attachment, gear case issues and bent drive shaft. Engine overhauling. This may be due to cooling airflow obstruction part, then operation with the wrong type and heat range spark plug, then lack of proper lubrication, then carburetor adjustment, operating the unit with a loose or missing muffler condition, then missing the air deflector or heat shield, then excessive engine loading, then improper ignition timing. So these are all the possible conditions for engine overheating. Then engine runs but stops after a short period of time. This may be due to fuel tank vent problems, carburetor float vent problem, debris, excessive engine heat, ignition system, insufficient or no engine pulse to fuel the pump, and bad fuel. Then engine misses under load. This is mainly due to faulty spark plug, cracked insulator part, then faulty ignition system, mismatched ignition system, then adjustment of a carburetor and bad fuel. Engine lacks power. This may be due to dirty or plugged air cleaner, choke partially in closed condition, excessive engine heat, cylinder head leaking, broken piston rings, exhaust port clogged, throttle not operating fully, low compression and bad fuel. Engine speed fluctuates, may be due to the following conditions. This may be due to the governor linkage adjustment, governor linkage binding, fuel tank vent problem, debris in carburetor, engine air leaks. Engine hard to restart when warm. Such condition exists may be due to excessive engine heat, obstruction, cooling airflow, ignition failure, flooded engine, low compression, engine idle speed is very too low, incorrect fuel such as old fuel or vapor lock. Then last one is oil seal leak. This is the case which may be due to oil seal worn or damaged, worn crankcases, bearing or bushing, oil seal is improperly installed, loss of crankcase vacuum. These are all the possible conditions exist for these oil seal leakages. So hope you all understand all these things. These are all the basic operational and procedures to be carried out for the aircraft engine maintenance and repairing cooling monitoring system. Right? So once again we will meet you in the next class. Thank you and all.